What's going on behind the scenes at major drug makers? How much can they do to help?
I think they can make a big difference. The private sector in the end comes up with the products, the vaccines that solve the problems. And as you saw, Merck did a spectacular success with the Ebola vaccine. That's a frighteningly deadly problem, and Merck came up with it. This time around, I believe we'll get the thing done within less than a year. It used to take a lot more time, but thanks to the new diagnostic approaches and the naked vaccine technology, I think we're going to get a vaccine very, very quickly here.
In less than a year, yes, I know in the broader time horizon sounds quick, but it doesn't sound fast enough for what we need right now, Fred.
I think we need help right away, and fortunately, there are the existing drugs out there. Tamiflu is there, as is the AbbVie drug Kaletra, which is supposed to be very effective. So hopefully the existing drugs will help reduce the incidence, and hopefully we'll get the vaccine very soon. The most important thing is to find out as quickly as possible how long is the incubation period. Is it really 10 days or is it 2 weeks? And what's the peak virus shedding cycle? If the virus sheds early, then that's problematic, because at that point you don't know if the person is ill or not. If it's later, then it's a lot better, because then by that time the fever shows up or something shows up and people are able to go and get help right away.
Yeah. Bill, let's look at it from the broader economic view and corporate view, of course, which you can help us with, particularly if you're a company that's got a lot of activity in China, a Starbucks, young China trades here. We can go on and on. Apple. How are you thinking about things, or how should you be thinking about things?
Well, I think in China it's going to be very serious. They're having a terrible problem with containment. As big as that population is spread out as is, all the different modes of transport, I think they're going to have a very serious problem. It's going to be hard to get under control, and I think retailers like McDonald's, Starbucks, Domino's, and others are going to face significant problems, and they're going to have to go to very severe containment measures in China. As far as the U.S. goes, I think there's some good news. I agree with Fred. It may be faster than he says. Dr. Anthony Fauci, who heads up the National Institute of Health's Center on Infectious Disease, says 1 to 3 months for a vaccine. They've already given a contract to Moderna, which is a very good firm, and they're optimistic they will have something. So in the U.S., I think we have to focus on containment for the next 30 to 60 days until we get a vaccine out there. And the problem with vaccines is you got to have one that's tailored specifically to this particular strain. Now, they have sequenced the gene in China, so their Institute of Health has done that. So that's good news. But I think it's going to be rough for the next few months.
The good news is, Bill,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, the good news is the SARS epidemic occurred in 2003, at which point things got clamped down and the news got held back. Now people have iPhones and they can get the images out, which is fantastic. You can alert the health authorities around the world very quickly.
That's very true.
I was just going to introduce, Bill, the fact that the government announced this weekend that they were using HIV treatments in some cases to deal with this, and I'm wondering how promising that is.
I think
that's
we'll
the one I talked about earlier. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Go ahead, Fred.
Bill, go ahead.
Fred, I think it's a wait and see. I think Fred's right. There's a possibility there, but we've got to apply it to people. There are very few cases. I think only 5 confirmed in the U.S. So we've got to see how well that works and get a vaccine probably that's tailored specifically to this. In the meantime, use interim measures like that. But I think right now it's focused on containment. Anyone who's been anywhere near Wuhan, it is a city of 11 million people. We've got to contain those people. We've got to probably put them in some kind of incubation, which Americans don't like, but I think it's got to be done.
Fred, is that the right way to go? There are some public health experts who say that would never be the response if this, in fact, was taking place in the U.S., these sort of travel restrictions, very much, at least from what I've read, unproven as a way to really stop the spread.
It's unproven. I think one should be very specific to the issue. This one, we don't know how the thing spreads. Does it spread through droplets, respiratory droplets? Does it spread through other means? We need to learn more. And I think wholesale lockdown is somewhat controversial because now there's a lack of medical supplies in these towns, and that's pretty tough. You don't know how to reduce the incidence of disease if you don't have the medical equipment there. The one very important thing I think we need to learn is that this thing can hit in unexpected places. So having enough local supplies in hospitals, especially Tamiflu and this HIV drug, Kaletra, I think is very important.
Bill, any thoughts on, at least from the U.S. standpoint, the ability of the agencies to monitor and contain any kind of global pandemic? There's been a lot of concerns about staffing and the ability of the White House to get personnel placed that is not on an interim basis. How would you rate that right now?
I'd say they're just going to release, I believe Senator Schumer said they're releasing another $85 million. I think they'll move very quickly on this. I don't think this will be a political issue. I think they'll get it released. And I think the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta is very capable. They've been through with Ebola, they've been through with SARS, they've been at H1N1. So they've seen this, and I think the U.S. is well prepared. But that doesn't take care of the global problem, particularly in China, and everyone's spreading all over Asia and, frankly, all over Europe from there. So I think that's a much more severe problem. But again, here in the U.S., I don't think there's any reason for panic. I think we've just got to respond very quickly when we identify cases, and people have to be extremely careful about their travel in that part of China.
Yeah, Fred, I wonder how much collaboration there is, whether the NIH or CDC officials are going there, how important that is from a U.S. perspective and from a global perspective that we send our folks over to figure out what's going on.
They're working very closely together, fortunately, WHO and the U.S. authorities. So this time around, the private sector, the public sector, they're really working very well. The one comment I wanted to make was, you may remember those images when the SARS epidemic hit, people were being scanned for fever. That was an early indicator that that person was a carrier. There is no way to know that this one has fever as an early problem or not. If that were the case, that would make the job a lot easier, because you could have these infrared scanners at airports, bus stations, railroad stations, and be able to find people very quickly.
Right. Yeah, and I think just to add to that, it could be up to a couple of weeks, as they revealed yesterday, that before you actually identify that somebody is carrying the disease.
Yeah, we'll wait for an answer on that one. Bill George, Fred Hassan, thank you both.